Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 14 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. Well, we're meeting with franchise business consultant and the founder of Franchise Logic, Careyann Golliver. Careyann is known as America's franchise matchmaker. Her passion comes from helping her grow her local family handyman business to the top-rated national franchise in the handyman industry. Careyann's been featured in national publications including Bloomberg Businessweek, Entrepreneur Magazine, and Fortune, and is a sought-after professional speaker showcasing her knowledge across national broadcast channels. And we're going to talk to Careyann about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews.
Are you one of those special people who are willing to go after your dreams and goals? Are you ready to fulfill that dream of owning your own business with the security of a proven brand? The opportunity to take control of your future and own a Rita's Italian Ice franchise is within your reach.
Rita's is seeking success-oriented individuals who are ready to make a change in their life, and Rita's offers unparalleled training and support to assure your success. And did you know the frozen treat industry is a recession-proof industry, and there are Rita's in 23 states currently with 540 stores open. Rita's Italian Ice has been around for 25 years and is listed as a top-performing franchise by the Wall Street Journal.
Now here's the really good part. Rita's Italian Ice is a unique and amazing taste treat. It's smoother than a snow cone, and it combines ice with real fresh fruit. The real fruit adds dramatically to the taste, and it comes in over 40 flavors. The ice and fruit are mixed on site and made fresh daily, and it is delicious.
You'll want to know more about this exciting and successful franchise opportunity. Go to www.ownaritas.com and get all your questions answered. That's www.ownaritas.com to take control of your dreams and future today. You don't want to wait any longer to be a part of this adventure. www.ownaritas.com.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 14 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. Well, we're meeting with franchise business consultant and the founder of Franchise Logic, Careyann Golliver. And Careyann is known as America's franchise matchmaker, and her passion comes from helping grow her local family handyman business to the top-rated national franchise in the handyman industry. Hi, Careyann. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Marty. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Oh, you're most welcome, Careyann. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. We always like to ask our guests, where are you calling from this morning, Careyann?
Beautiful Colorado.
And it is beautiful there, isn't it?
We're breaking records every day, 100 degrees.
I have some friends who live out there.
But we'll take it.
That's fantastic. You have such an amazing story, Careyann, which is why I'm so happy to have you on the show. Maybe we can kind of like go back to the beginning, and you could tell your story on how and why you got involved in franchising.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I think my past career, I was always in sales and marketing and worked with a lot of startup companies and really loved the energy of creating something new and nurturing it and then taking it to market. The problem was that there was always some yahoo that screwed something up, and then the
Mm-hmm.
startup was shut down.
Right, exactly.
So it was kind of, yeah, you know, like just kind of a vicious cycle. And so was at family's home, my sister's house. We were having some friends over, drinking some fine wine, having the conversation of what should we do when we grow up, which I know a lot of people, especially after the pandemic, have done a lot of self-reflection, and literally just decided to start a business in the basement of her home, and really it morphed into a multi-million-dollar business, handyman business. So we really listened to what our community told us they needed and wanted, and delivered that, and had huge success. And then someone came to us and said, gosh, you guys should think about franchising your business. And we're like, what's that all about? So we learned all about that. That's how I really got immersed into franchising at the beginning. And we ended up, so we started our business in 1997, franchised it the latter part of 2001, and was the top-rated national handyman franchise for a couple decades. And actually 2 Septembers ago, Ace Hardware acquired us.
What an amazing story, Careyann. You know, it's
pretty magical.
It is. I mean, it's really it's an incredible story. I mean, how you know you're talking with your sisters over a glass of wine, and all this happens. It's interesting. You know, when I was reading your background, I said it was interesting that you went into the handyman business. What kind of drew you to that industry?
Well, first and foremost, it really actually started as a swamp cooling and repair business. Mm-hmm. Here in Colorado, we consider those the poor man's air conditioning unit.
Right.
It's actually really nice because we're so dry, and it adds a little nice humidity in our dry air. And what happened was, every time my brother-in-law would be dispatched to someone's home to repair or fix their swamp cooler, they didn't want him to leave. I mean, he is very charismatic, but they were like, hey, do you know anyone who could do this? And do you know anyone who does carpentry? And, hey, my 80-year-old neighbor next door needs her garbage disposal replaced, and she can't find anybody to show up because the normal general contractors don't want to mess around with Grandma Sally, right? They want the big jobs. And so he would come back to the basement and be like, oh, my gosh, like, this is crazy. Everyone wants that. So we literally called, back in the late 90s, there was no such thing as a no-call list. And we literally picked up the phone book and called, 300 and some odd people and just said, hey, do you have a handyman service? Would you like to have a handyman service? What are the things that you'd have them do? What are you willing to pay for? And so, again, we listened to what our community said was lacking, and I think we all, listening on the line, can agree that the bar out there for customer service with service-based businesses, especially handyman business, is so pathetically low.
Right. Agreed. Absolutely.
And so our mission was really to raise that bar, to change the vision and image of what people normally thought of when they thought of hiring a handyman. And, obviously we had huge success. We made our craftsmen actually W-2'd employees instead of just contracting them out. We knew who they were. We did background checks. They were dressed in professional uniforms and put on the foot booties if it had been raining or snowing, didn't leave a big mess behind. So small little things like that really made a huge difference in the customer experience. Right. And I think that today the new currency is speed. I mean, the pandemic slowed us down a little bit and gave us a little bit more patience because we just didn't know, we didn't have any control. But, really, if your air conditioner goes out and it's 100 degrees out, you're not going to want to wait 2 weeks to get it fixed, right? So absolutely. Also understanding that, just like Chick-fil-A, just like Disney, just like Southwest Airlines, those Apple Store, they've all realized the same thing. The customer loyalty is there because of the experience the customer has purchasing your products or services rather than really what your product or service is. So we really tapped into that and treated our craftsmen with dignity and respect, paid them top wages. We had a 1 hour minimum, So if we went to Grandma Sally's, she had a list of things for us to fix, and our craftsman finished in 40 minutes. He had 20 minutes left on the clock. And so we would have them, tighten up loose doorknobs, replace batteries and fire detectors. I had a craftsman actually had to put out a small kitchen fire. He didn't start it, but he was there when it happened.
Wow. Oh, my God. That's incredible.
So, we charge an hour, and we're going to provide a full hour. So those small things just made such the difference to the consumer, and it's all about that experience.
It's an amazing story, Careyann. And then you go on to start your own organization. You start Franchise Logic, and you become known as America's franchise matchmaker. What prompted you to start the organization, Careyann?
Yeah, on my journey of growing the handyman family business and then franchise, what I realized was, there is a lot of people that are very attracted to franchising for many reasons, right? It's mitigating your risk. Over 90% of franchises that are successful 10 plus years versus a startup may not even make it to 6 years. So lots of advantages. You're partnering with the expert. Their job is to make sure you get a home run. So, people have that passion and that desire to fire their boss, to cut the cords of corporate America, to be the boss, but they just need help with the matching because not every franchise is created equal. I mean, I can confidently say that because I was a franchisor for a couple decades, right? So there's some amazing stuff out there, but there's also a lot of crap. And you got to be careful because this is an investment, just like a house, just like a vehicle. It's huge. And so if you're 52 and you're looking to invest in a franchise, you got to make sure you get it right because you don't have enough years to recover. So 11 years ago, I learned a lot through franchising our family business and having huge success. But I also learned, going into business with family is not always rainbows and unicorns. And I was really craving, Marty. I was craving something that was mine, that was all mine, that I could say was mine. And I had all this knowledge and experience, and we'd supported hundreds of franchisees in our system and had great support and success. And so I said, I see that there is a void to really help the willing and able that have a desire to explore franchise business ownership and guide them and match them to the best franchises that are going to yield the results they're looking for, and also help them very carefully conduct proper due diligence on this type of investment so their eyes are wide open before they make any decisions or spend any money. So that's really my mission.
It sounds like you really enjoy this business, don't you, Careyann? Like you said, it's your own, but you must get a lot of gratification from your type of service. I always wonder how somebody goes about this whole thing alone. When I first got involved in franchising, I think at the time, they said there was only something like 1,200, 1,500 different franchises in the U.S. And I think today it's up to was it 3,500? It's
nearly 4,000, and it continues to grow. I mean, anything and everything is a franchise, right? You think about it you wake up in the morning, you go to a gym, it's a franchise. You stop by and get your smoothie at the drive-thru, it's a franchise. You pick up your clothes at the dry cleaner, it's a franchise. You take your dogs to dog training, it's a franchise. You go out to dinner with your family, it's probably a franchise. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It is. It's crazy, Carrie. There's industries franchising today that I never would have thought, would end up being a franchise. We've even had dental franchises on the show, and things like that. And I was just I could have never pictured that, maybe 10, 15 years ago, and it's really amazing. But your service is just so valuable because you say, how does somebody go about this alone? Maybe somebody, the people that listen to our show, we call them aspiring entrepreneurs. They want to get into franchising, but we learned after all these years, most of them don't even know where to begin. How does the process work? So when someone comes to you, Careyann, to use your service, do they have these preconceived notions as far as what industry they want to go into? And that's kind of where you come in, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, many of them have kind of dabbled online, searched
Right.
on Google. There are franchise portals out there that, just list every franchise under the sun, good, bad, and ugly. But again, what is a name going to tell you? Nothing. Right? So, and they may think, a lot of people, Marty, think, oh, I'm an expert at, XYZ, so I need to find a franchise that does XYZ.
Right.
Well, you do not have to be an expert in the industry of the franchise that you're buying because you're partnering with the expert, the franchisor, right? And logically, if you think about it, every business pretty much operates the same way. So what we do is we focus on people's strengths, what they enjoy doing, what they love doing, what they do well, and we apply those to the right franchise role in the right franchise model, and that's really where the magic happens. So I've really kind of mastered and simplified a process of, I spend a tremendous amount of time, first of all, it's just an initial discussion. Why do you want to look at franchising?
Yeah.
Why do you want to be a business owner? Because not everyone should be a business owner. It's still a lot of work. But you get to reap the rewards as opposed to renting your time and talent to build wealth for somebody else. You're going to be benefiting from all of your hard work. So we talk about, what's going on in your world today that has you looking at possibly becoming a franchise business owner. What are your goals? What's your budget? That sort of stuff. And if it makes sense, then we have them fill out an online questionnaire because it really helps me better help them through my process. It's very quick and simple. It's a 10-minute questionnaire. We send them online. And then what we do, which is a total blast, is we have a Zoom video conference appointment. And they are the star of the show that day because it's all about their goals and their wants and their needs. So we really are laser focused on what is going to be most important to you in a business opportunity that would justify you spending time doing some due diligence? Because, look, nobody has any time to waste, right? So we don't want to just throw a dart and look at anything under the sun. We want to be very laser-focused. We want to understand what kind of role do you want to play, what kind of franchise do you want? Do you want a brick-and-mortar franchise, or would you be open to looking at something that's non-facility-based, where you could literally possibly have it open in 8 weeks and be generating revenue, right? As opposed to waiting, 9 to 12 months to open up, a brick-and-mortar ice cream store. So it's just all about, we kind of re-engineer the mindset of, instead of just looking at a list or looking at a bunch of names that tell you nothing, let's focus on you and then let me be the expert to match you up with 3 or 4 franchises that are going to check off the majority of the boxes of what you're looking for and as little of what you don't want. And we're with them every step of the way. And so it's really important to compare and contrast different models. It should never be a one-and-done scenario. And I surprise people every day in my business. I mean, that's also, and a good surprise, is that we're going to, when you look at a franchise as an investment vehicle, it's a vehicle that's going to get you from A to B. So
it's a good analogy.
We look at the franchise. Is this going to meet the requirements that the person is needing, wanting, in the location that they want, in their spend tolerance, giving them the return that they're looking for? And then we help them understand we're going to put them to the front of the line of these franchise organizations and help them truly learn a day in the life of owning one of these businesses. And not everyone ends up moving forward, Marty. I got to be honest, right? So there's no guarantee, but, we surprise people often with franchises that they didn't even think they should be looking at that are perfect fits for what they're looking for.
You remind me of this story, Careyann. We had, I think it was a top franchisees it was a window cleaning franchise. This was many years ago, and they came from corporate America, and they were surprised that they ended up in window cleaning. They used a consulting type of service as well, and that shocked them. They said, "No way!" Window cleaning. They're like, I can never imagine seeing myself doing this, and they ended up being very happy. And they purchased multiple territories, and so they're ecstatic. And that must be interesting. I'm sure that happens a lot, doesn't it, with the clients that you work with?
Every day.
That's incredible.
And people, and there are a lot of people that just think that, their franchises is food. Not very many people realize there's a lot more to franchising than French fries. And they're like, oh, I had no idea, home tutoring and, window washing and commercial waste. I was working with a woman actually in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and she wanted food and she wanted health and wellness because those were her passions. And I did show her some of those, but then I threw in a wild card. And she kept an open mind, which is definitely key. And she learned about the business. She learned about the unit economics. And she was so elated with the business, she moved forward with 4 territories. And it was in commercial waste. And
That's
she
incredible.
was like, I would have never thought, but this is the perfect business for me, right? So I think it's important for people to understand that it's okay to not know what you don't know.
Sure. Yeah,
and this
absolutely.
is all about becoming a student and really keeping an open mind. We all have preconceived notions and head trash about things. I have my own about things I'm not fully educated on.
Sure.
But if we walk around with barriers and just say, no, I'm only going to look at, listen, I had a gentleman in Kentucky, working with him and his wife. We showed him them multiple businesses. And the last business that I was presenting to him happened to be in the beauty industry.
Wow.
And he said, well, evidently you didn't look at my LinkedIn photo very good, because if you would have seen I don't have a single hair on my head.
Right.
And I said, that doesn't matter, right? And they ended up moving forward with multiple locations with lash extensions.
That's amazing, isn't it? When you hear those stories, and I've had some of those stories on my show, over the last 14 years as well, Careyann. It is interesting that, sure, why not? You know what I mean? Look, you and your sister, you achieved success in the handyman industry, and we've even had, men go into even edible arrangements has been on our show, and I think one of their top franchisees was a man, but he never pictured going into an edible arrangements. He thought, he kind of stereotyped and said, okay, well, maybe it's more for a woman-oriented franchise. And it's not. Yeah, absolutely. So it is. I mean, there's just so much opportunity. And use that key word you said is to have that open mind is so important, isn't it, when you begin this process?
Absolutely. And again, there's no pressure to do anything you don't want to do, but keep an open mind and learn.
Right.
And I tell everyone, look, when I present franchise companies to them, I say, look, you're not going to make any decisions right away. The only decision you have to make today is what's for supper.
Right.
That's it.
Exactly.
And we're just going to take it week by week. It is typically from beginning to end about a 90-day journey.
Okay.
You have to get approved by the franchisor, because this is, you're going to go on some blind dates with some franchise companies. You're going to have some courtship, and you may or may not get to the altar, because it's all about truly having that strong business marriage, that relationship. The franchisor is dependent upon you being able to execute their proven model in your desired location, and you're going to be dependent on them having phenomenal support and training and truly caring about you being successful. And so it's a mutual courtship. And at the end, if you fall in love and you both decide that you're going to move forward, then, pre-COVID, you would have to get on a plane or your car and drive down or hop down to the corporate location at the headquarters of the franchise company and, have some social time and meet the entire team that's going to support you every day, all the time as your business partner, and make sure they have a real building and they're haven't been calling you out of a 10 truck. That there's a group and there's a village behind that's going to be supporting you, and look them in the eye and shake their hand and really understand if it's a brick and mortar model. You typically go visit some local sites and that sort of stuff. But, it's the last step before you guys both decide yes or no, this is really the direction we want to go. So, it's really important to not only have the right model giving you the right role with the numbers making sense, and the person can actually visualize and see themselves being successful in that business. But the cultural fit is as important because you're going to be in this business marriage. You got to all get along and share the same core values, or why bother?
Yeah, well said. Yeah, well said, Careyann. Who are your if there's such a thing, Careyann, your typical client? I mean, is it someone coming from corporate America? Is it like a husband-wife team? Are they a bit older? Because, franchising is an investment, of course. I mean, how would you describe maybe, if there is such a thing, a typical client?
Yeah, I mean, I have a variety of them. I say that because really, again, the pandemic really made people pivot and change in a good way, in a very positive way.
Sure.
So I'm seeing in today, coming out of the pandemic, a lot more younger people that have that entrepreneurial spirit, in their mid-30s, 40s. Before that, ideally, it was really the sweet spot was between 52 and 67. And so it's a mishmash of that. It's people coming out of corporate that they may love their job. They may have a great job. They make great money. But just like the woman in Pennsylvania who happened to be a scientist, she kept her job. The whole purpose of buying the franchises was to create a legacy for her son in the future.
Sure, wow.
And so you don't have to quit your job to be a business owner with franchising, which is pretty amazing, and again helps even mitigate the risk more. These are manager-ran franchises. Now, you still have to have a pulse. You have to be involved, a good deal of the time on top of your other activities, because no one's going to care about your business more than you are.
Absolutely.
And they're not going to run themselves, right? So, but I think stay-at-home moms right now, Marty, what's really interesting that I'm seeing is because during the pandemic, child care evaporated. And they were forced, wrongfully, but they were forced to choose between their job and taking care of their children.
That's right.
Well, guess what? Now they don't have to choose. They can be as present and as involved in their children's lives and still have their own thing on the side with the franchise, which is pretty amazing. And, people that, unfortunately, in that 52 to 67 age range are still getting, just ignored by corporate America, age discriminated, unfortunately. Or they're just like, you know what, I'm done. I'm ready to build something. I want to produce additional income. They say things like, I want supplemental income, or I want to diversify my portfolio of existing businesses that are not franchises. So I work with, very high-end caliber candidates that, come from well-capitalized other businesses where they're going to have, millions to add to their portfolio, as well as stay-at-home moms, empty nesters, all across the boards now is what I'm seeing.
That's terrific. It's interesting, Careyann, because I'm going to talk like I'm an old man for a second, but when I was a kid, my parents would emphasize, get a job in like corporate America or work for the government or something like that. That was a safety net, but that doesn't exist today, is it? When you're working for corporate America, there's no such thing as a safety net in corporate America, is there?
No, but people, there are still people that's ingrained in them, and I tell people it's not your safety net, it's your drag net, honestly. And I think that if my father was the same way. With this handyman business, before he passed, he was like, when are you going to get a real job? And it's like, Dad, this is my job, and I have customers, and I have craftsmen, and I'm making money, and what are you talking about? And luckily before he did pass, he actually saw it and was like, okay, now I get it, and I'm so proud of you girls. But
that's great.
I think that people are now realizing that you are in control. Use your imagination. Anything that you put your mind to is possible. And I think, people need to understand that today is the day to let go of the things that no longer serve you. Just let them go and create your own future. I mean, people are just, wanting that tangible to be able to 5 or 10 years look back and say, I built this. This is mine.
Exactly.
And the exit strategy is pretty attractive. I mean, if you run a good business, you can sell it for a very nice multiple and then officially retire and, go move to Barcelona, Spain if you want to, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of benefits to creating an asset, creating those important tax shelters, leaving behind a legacy, leaving a mark as opposed to, one of my candidates from corporate America said, I don't want my gravestone to say, here lies the man who worked 80 hours a week.
Right. There you go. Right.
Yeah. I mean, he
it's
literally
true.
hadn't taken vacation with his family in over 6 years.
Wow.
Because he was afraid, Marty. He was afraid if I go on vacation, somebody else is going to replace me and I'm going to come back without a job.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of people out there like that, Careyann. It's interesting. I imagine that you talk about the exit strategy with your clients early. Of course, you want to talk about it before you get into it. I got into a business many years ago, Careyann. I never had an exit strategy. I was a lot younger back then, and I just said, okay, when it came time to go separate ways, what do we do now? And it got very messy. And this is something, that, your expertise, you say, what do you want this business to do for you, and how do you want to exit the business? And those are very important questions, aren't they? Very
important, because you want to know that before you go in, like you said, so that you've got a plan. It's just like anything else in life, right?
Right.
You've got to write down your goals. If you don't write down your goals, you're not going to ever build a path to get to where you want to go. There are people that are making tremendous personal sacrifices for $150,000 a year, which is fantastic money, but at the end of the day, they don't own their time.
Right.
They have no say in when they spend their time, how they spend their time, and people, are just like, I'm ready to take back control. I'm tired of the corporate BS. And again, if they still are okay keeping if they've been at their company for 8 years, what's another year and a half to 2 years, and then they can create a transitional bridge, if you will, into full-time ownership once they, get it going and it produces enough income to replace possibly their current income or more than that, in a year and a half to 2 years. Or they're just like, I'm ready to jump all in and just go like gangbusters. And even during the pandemic, with service-based businesses, I was placing people that, had been sitting there unemployed, frustrated prior to the pandemic, and then the pandemic happened and the world just was just like on pause, and they're like, I'm so bored, I've got to find something to do. And they were able to get some of the, I had a woman that purchased a service-based business at the end of April. She went to training in May, opened her doors June 1. That's like less than a month.
That's incredible.
During a pandemic.
That's incredible.
She focused on service-based, essential needs-based, not luxury spend. And that's really kind of a blue chip right now because it's Amazon-proof, it's pandemic-proof, it's recession-resistant, and it doesn't have as many peaks and valleys because it's essential needs-based. So, and Jeff, she is extremely happy this June
because wonderful.
She was able to really get going last June. Yeah.
It's something that you can't do on your own, is it, Careyann? You know what I mean? You can't do that without franchising, can you? With franchising, you have the system, you have the brand.
It's going to take a lot longer.
Exactly.
For sure. Look, we started the business in the basement. Here's the thing. Nobody cared if we were successful. Our attorneys didn't care. My banker didn't care. My CPA didn't care. We were on our own trying to figure it all out. With a franchise, you're buying a business in a box.
Absolutely.
The marketing, the operations, the technology, the training, the HR, the support, it's already created for you.
Yeah,
you're going to have a nice little blueprint that you execute. And if you do that and don't get off at the reservation and start trying to create different stuff, there's really, no reason why you would not find success, but you have to be dedicated. You have to be committed. You have to follow what they tell you to do. Their job every day is to make sure you don't make the same mistakes they made when they were making the proven model.
Yeah. It's like a map, isn't it, Careyann? To get you from point
like a
A,
blueprint.
like you said, to point B. It is. It's really fantastic. So what's next for you, Careyann? It sounds like, again, you're really enjoying what you're doing, and you've branded yourself very well. I've been familiar with your name for quite some time now. So again, that's so excited to talk to you today. So where do you see yourself maybe 3 years, 5 years down the road?
I talk a lot about that with my husband. My husband is the opposite. I guess that's why opposites attract. He's like a corporate America lover.
Right.
And
okay.
he loves the company. They're a great company,
that's
but
great.
I'm just like, no, I could never do that.
Right.
Once you become a business owner, it's like the golden handcuffs. You're spoiled.
Hard to go back.
Hard to go back. Yeah. And so. I'm like, I don't know, he talks about, we're in our 50s, so he's talking about, should we retire at 50? I'm like, I'm never going to retire. Like, I have way too much fun,
That's wonderful.
Where am I going to be? I'm not going anywhere, I guess, is the
That's
answer
terrific.
that I like to say is, I'm here, and I'm here to help people realize the dream of business ownership. That's really my passion. I literally feel like I'm changing people's lives. I get emails from married couples where, oh my gosh, you've changed my husband. You've saved our marriage.
That's amazing.
I had a gentleman that had lots of health issues due to all the stress. He had a heart attack, stress from his job, from his boss. And we were able to get him into his own business, and he's flourishing. And she's like, I've never seen him happier, right? Like, that's
wonderful.
I can't even tell you how amazing that is. And even people that don't move forward with a franchise, that's still a victory in my mind.
Exactly.
They'll send me a referral, and they'll say, franchising wasn't right for me, but if you're looking at a franchise, you got to work with Careyann.
Yeah.
So I'm not going anywhere. That's not probably the answer you were looking for, Marty, but really.
That's okay. It's a great answer.
I think that, here's the thing that's so amazing about a franchise. Franchising itself is not an industry. It's not an industry. It's just simply a methodology to conduct business, which is why you said, I can't believe there's even dental franchises.
Exactly.
Like, what's that about, right? And look at Pearl Vision. Pearl Vision is a franchise. So
that's right.
It's a methodology of conducting business, very process oriented, and so therefore it can weather any storm and even the COVID pandemic. So I just don't even see any reason to go anywhere else.
Yeah, why would you? You're so happy doing what you're doing. I hear these stories, and it gives you so much joy. Absolutely. It's interesting you mentioned, because I can't tell you how many times on the show I hear, Careyann, is that, someone will use the word franchise industry, and I never correct them. You know what I mean? It's like you said. There's like 75, 80 industries franchising, but there's no such thing as really, like, as you said, a franchise industry, So it's interesting you mentioned that. How can our listeners, Careyann, get more information on you and Franchise Logic? Are there any websites you can kind of point them to or direct them to, or any phone numbers?
Yeah, my website is franchise-logic.com, so that's the little dash, so franchise-logic.com. I've got tons of videos on there, tons of free digital downloads, how to buy a franchise, semi-absentee franchise ownership, how to escape corporate America and find your rich with a franchise. So those are all free. Help yourself to all of those. And in various areas on my website, there's also, calendar links. You can book an initial 15-minute conversation with me, or you can just give me a call. My number is 303-805-5078.
And I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed talking to you today, Careyann. I'm glad I finally got to talk to you after all these years.
Yay,
and I'd like to invite you back, in the next year or so, because I've enjoyed this conversation. So it was great to talk to you today, Careyann. And we'll be right back with more. You're welcome. We'll be right back with more franchise interviews. Coming up on segment 2, you're going to hear what every franchipreneur needs to know before buying a franchise. We're going to play a clip from our popular Great Quotes in Franchising podcast right here on Franchise Interviews.
Franchisers, are you looking to reach aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? Are you looking to reach a highly educated audience on franchising? For over 8 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys, and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Hi, everyone. This is Marty McDermott from Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. You know, we've been hosting Franchise Interviews many years now, and you can actually hear the show in a number of different places today. You can go to, of course, franchiseinterviews.com, where we have our interviews arranged alphabetically. We also have interviews arranged by category. So if you have a particular industry that you're interested in, you can go to the category of your choice and check out all the different interviews that we've done over the years. Our show's been syndicated in a number of different places. Of course, you can hear our show on blogtalkradio.com. We've been working with Blog Talk Radio for many years now. And you can hear the live shows there, and then you can download them as an MP3. You can hear our shows on Stitcher.com. You can hear our interviews on, I think it's pronounced, I always want to call it Blueberry.com, but it's BLUBRRY.com, which is another podcast service. You can now hear our shows on iTunes.com, and of course, you can hear our shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week if you're a diehard fan to our show on live365.com. And we have over the years over 420 shows. So if you were to listen to live365.com for 2 weeks, there's a chance that you may not even hear the same show twice. So that's how many shows we've recorded over the years. But today's Great Quote in Franchising podcast comes from Darren Guccione, and Darren is the CEO and co-founder of Keeper Security, Inc. And what's interesting about this podcast, we had Darren on the show as the founder and the creator of Keeper, which is the world's most downloaded passwords manager and digital vault. And Darren is a real entrepreneur. And one of the questions that we ask on the show is, what advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur or franchipreneur or someone looking to buy a franchise? And that question is usually directed to someone who has been directly involved in franchising over the years. But again, Darren is a real background is in accounting and business, and I thought his response was just as great as anything that we've heard on the show. So here we go with Darren Guccione, the CEO and co-founder of Keeper Security, Inc.
Amazing. It's amazing technology. In studying your background, Darren, I mean, I was mentioning earlier, I mean, the majority of our listeners, again, we call them aspiring franchipreneurs. You know, they want to go into their own business, and they're kind of like heading towards the franchise alternative. What advice would you give to them? Because you're certainly, in studying you, certainly classified as an entrepreneur. So what advice would you give to them?
Well, my background is engineering technology. I'm also a CPA, and
right.
I've always had an admiration for franchises. One of the things that I love about franchises, among other things, is that you can analyze the different franchise models that are out there, the brands, the type of businesses, and you can quickly identify which ones are successful. And typically, they give you a roadmap of what you need to do to execute. When you start a business without
right.
a franchise roadmap, you typically don't necessarily know where you're necessarily going to go or wind up. And so you get a greater sense of security and guidance when you can pick a franchise model that, A, fits within, your goals in life, your interests in life, and B, provides a really sound, infrastructure for you to build a business with a great support system around you. Most businesses that are one-off businesses don't have that. So there's a greater sense of, uncertainty out there when a business owner or an entrepreneur, as you've outlined it, decides to, pursue a franchise versus doing something completely fresh and new. I think the risk profile of doing the latter is much greater. So that's my response to that.
No, it's fantastic advice. So any final thoughts, Darren?
Fantastic interview with Darren Guccione. So I want to thank everyone for making our show such a success, and this podcast has really just taken off over the years, and we got some really great quotes in franchising coming up. So thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you again soon with another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising from Franchise Interviews. Take care, everyone.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.